The Artifact. Created by Gareth Davies. Published by Digiback Studio.
Prologue. The artifact drifted. It had been drifting for longer than stars had burned, longer than galaxies had formed their spiraling arms, longer, perhaps, than the universe itself had drawn its first breath of existence. In the absolute void between galaxies, where light from distant quasars took billions of years to reach, where the cosmic microwave background whispered secrets of creation, the artifact waited, patient, timeless, indifferent. 137 kilometers long. Not a ship, not a station, not anything humanity had words for. A construct, an object, an impossibility that nevertheless existed, floating in the space between Virgo and the local group, equidistant from everything and nothing. The number was not random, could not be random. Any physicist who might have observed it would have recognized the significance immediately. 137, the inverse of the fine structure constant, the dimensionless number that governed how light and matter danced together at the quantum level. That the artifact measured exactly this length suggested something far more disturbing than mere engineering prowess. It suggested intent, understanding, a statement written in the fundamental language of reality itself. Its geometry was wrong. The length related to its width in a ratio of 1.618 to 1. The golden ratio, phi. The same proportion found in nautilus shells and flower petals, in the spiral of galaxies and the structure of DNA. But here, in this massive construct, the ratio felt intentional in a way that made the mind recoil. Every surface, every angle, every curve adhered to mathematical perfection that should have been beautiful. Instead, it was horrifying. The artifact's surface, if surface was the right word, appeared to be composed of something that absorbed light absolutely. Vanta Black would have seemed reflective by comparison. It drank in photons and gave nothing back, a wound in space itself, a tear in the fabric of reality that refused to heal. But it was not inert. Sections of its massive structure followed the Fibonacci sequence: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. Spiraling outward in patterns that hurt to perceive, segments that should have been separate, connected in ways that violated topology. Curves that bent through dimensions the human mind wasn't equipped to process. To look upon it, if anything had been present to look, would be to see an object that was simultaneously two-dimensional and 12-dimensional, flat and impossibly deep, solid and somehow hollow. The eye would reject it. The brain would deny it. The soul would understand, in some primal way, that this thing should not exist. Yet it did. And it had been here for an incomprehensibly long time. Material analysis, had anyone been present to perform it, would have yielded impossible results. Elements that shouldn't exist outside the hearts of dying stars. Isotopes with decay chains that suggested the artifact predated the universe's current expansion. Atomic structures that obeyed laws of physics from a universe that might have existed before this one, or would exist after. The artifact did not orbit, did not spin, did not drift with the subtle gravitational currents of the cosmic web. It simply held position, as if it had claimed this point in space as its own and refused to be moved by something as trivial as the fundamental forces of nature. But most significant was the signal. The artifact broadcast continuously, had been broadcasting since before Earth's sun ignited from its primordial cloud of gas. An electromagnetic pulse riding frequencies that shouldn't exist, following patterns too complex to be random, too regular to be natural. The signal was not sound, was not light, was not anything that required a medium to travel. It propagated through the quantum foam of space-time itself, riding the fabric of reality at speeds that made light seem pedestrian. "Come." That was what the signal said, though it said nothing at all. No language, no mathematics, no binary code or prime numbers. Just a pulse, a rhythm, a heartbeat from something that had no heart. Listen. And they had listened. The first species to find it had no name that could be translated into human phonemes. They existed in what humanity would one day call the Sculptor Galaxy, 200 million years before primates walked upright on Earth. They were ancient, wise, technologically advanced beyond human comprehension. They found the artifact by following the signal. They studied it for 3 generations. 14% achieved transcendence and vanished into higher dimensions. The rest destroyed themselves in a war of unprecedented brutality. Their civilization left behind empty cities and monuments to their enlightenment, none of which mentioned the artifact. As if, at the end, they had agreed on one final truth, that some things should not be found. But the signal continued. 60 million years later, in the Andromeda Galaxy, another species followed the whisper. They were aquatic, peaceful, had never known war in 50,000 years of recorded history. They brought the artifact, or a piece of it. They were not foolish enough to move all 137 kilometers to their homeworld for study. Within one rotation of their planet, violence erupted for the first time in their history. Within 10 rotations, their oceans ran red with blood. Within 100 rotations, their species was extinct. The fragment they had taken was found drifting in space 137 kilometers from where they had brought it, as if it had simply returned itself to proper distance. As if separation was temporary. As if all pieces knew where they belonged. Then came the travelers. Then the inheritors. Then the precursors and the descendants and 1,000 other species whose names were lost to entropy and time. Some studied it from a distance and survived, though they were changed. Some touched it and achieved enlightenment they could not bear. Some weaponized fragments and destroyed themselves in the attempt. Most simply died, screaming into the void, as the artifact showed them what they truly were beneath the lies. The artifact recorded nothing, remembered nothing, cared for nothing. It was not a weapon, though it killed. Not a tool, though it transformed. Not alive, though it responded. It simply was. A mirror, a test, a judge that passed no judgment. It showed each species the truth of what they were. Most did not survive the revelation. 15 billion years of this. 15 billion years of civilizations rising to touch the stars, following the signal, finding the artifact, and learning the universe's cruelest lesson. That consciousness was not ascension. That intelligence was not wisdom. That reaching the stars did not make you worthy of them. The artifact taught that lesson without malice, without intention, without awareness. It simply existed, and existence was enough. In the year humanity would designate as 2165 CE, a deep space telescope array detected an anomalous electromagnetic signature from the Virgo constellation. The pattern was too complex to be natural, too persistent to be random. It originated from a point source 2.5 billion light-years distant, in the vicinity of the quasar designated 3C273. The scientists who discovered it were excited. This could be first contact, proof of alien intelligence, the answer to humanity's oldest question, are we alone? They did not know they had heard an echo, a whisper, a fragment of a signal that had been calling since before their species learned to make fire. They did not know that others had answered that call. They did not know that none had survived unchanged. Funding was approved. Survey missions were authorized. Preliminary expeditions were planned to follow the signal toward its distant source, though the journey would take decades, perhaps centuries. But there were closer echoes, resonances, harmonics, places where the signal had touched and lingered, where space itself remembered the artifact's influence, even across impossible distances. Colonies were founded in these places, following survey data that showed promising energy signatures and ideal conditions for sustainable development. The scientists who compiled these reports did not understand why certain locations called to them, did not realize their instruments were singing in harmony with something vast and patient and impossibly far away. The colonies thrived, for a time, and in the void between galaxies, the artifact continued its patient drift, holding position in the darkness, broadcasting its eternal message to a universe that would be better off death. 137 kilometers of impossible geometry, 15 billion years of patient waiting, a signal that promised enlightenment, and a truth that destroyed everyone who learned it. Come, the signal whispered across the cosmic void, and somewhere, in the spiral arm of an unremarkable galaxy, someone was listening. Someone was always listening. The artifact pulsed once, a heartbeat in the darkness, and the signal continued.